Good. We're going to kick off. Hi, everyone. Good to see everyone. A lot of familiar faces. I think I've been to MadFest, I think, every year. It gets a little madder every year. So well done for making it in. Well done if you got some lunch food. I, in the past, spoke about things like voice and AR. Today, I'm going to talk about embracing technology, covering everything from AI to mixed reality, to Web3 and these different topics, and I'm going to share some learnings from Diageo. So first of all, Diageo, if you're not familiar with us, we're the world's leading premium drinks company. So we're fortunate enough to work with an incredible portfolio of over 200 brands. So, you know, global heavyweights like Johnny Walker, like Baileys, like Guinness, but also a lot of local heroes like Pim's in the UK or Bundaberg in Australia. So a brilliant brand portfolio. And I'm fortunate enough to work in what we call the Breakthrough Innovation team. What we do in Breakthrough Innovation is we look at those big transformative opportunities that we currently do not have the capabilities for, right? So the things that we see coming around the corner where we need to really think about it differently, think about how we can seize those opportunities. And that's quite a big task because a lot of the brands we work with have an incredible heritage. They're over 200 years old. If you take people like John Walker, Charles Tanqueray, or this man, Arthur Guinness, they were incredible entrepreneurs in their own right. And Arthur Guinness himself, in 1759, he signed the first lease for his brewery for a 9,000-year term. That's how bold his vision was. That's how convinced he was going to win. So our job is to not only make sure these brands don't die, but to evolve them, to ensure relevance, to make sure that they weather the storm. And when we talk about technology, one thing to say, when we talk about disruptive technologies, we're not just talking digital here, right? We're really talking emerging technologies. And I've been in this space of emerging tech for more or less 20 years, and I've never seen a time like this. And again, we're not talking about programmatic media buying or influencer tech. We're talking about massive shifts. And alone, if you would look at something like 5G, cloud computing, edge computing, in its own right, these are disruptive forces that can change the way our consumers live their lives, change the way that society functions, government functions, education works. And you add on AI, mixed reality, Web3, blockchain, and it's just a mad, mad landscape out there. And our job is, as marketeers or anyone in business, to understand what does that mean for us, what are the threats, what are the opportunities. And not only is it a more disruptive tech landscape than ever before, but it's moving faster than ever before, right? And you might have seen variations of that. Speed of change is absolutely incredible. While it might have taken a new technology like planes or automobiles or others over 50 years to reach 50 million consumers, now ChatGPT managed to do that in 2 months. Even more confusingly, something like Pokemon Go did it within a couple of weeks and then plateaued at 100 million, and the big impact on all of our lives never quite materialized. So it's such a volatile landscape to navigate, but it's our job as marketeers to figure out where are the opportunities. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time to talk about AI because pretty much every other talk today does, but AI in itself is just such a disruptive force. And we were last year, when everyone was talking about the metaverse, we were a bit cold on that. With AI, we just know that disruption is going to impact everything. And Andrew Ney, who used to lead the Google Brain Development Program, he uses that analogy of saying AI is the new electricity. And it used to be that data is the new oil. We like our catchphrases, so now AI is the new electricity. But when we look at that, if you go back to the end of the 18th century, you had electricity taking over every part of society and every type of business. And if you had a pump, it would become an electric pump. There was an industry around that. If you had an oil lamp, it would be an electric lamp, right? We're seeing that same degree of disruption with AI. It's not there everywhere yet, but the curve is going like that. And it doesn't matter if it's HR, if it's supply, if it's marketing, if it's law, if it's transactional, if it's creative, AI is going to disrupt that, right? And the bad news about a lot of that is that a lot of organizations don't have the urgency to really, really respond to that, right? And often where it starts in the first place is that the leaders in an organization need to have that urgency and really drive that through. Because if the leaders don't understand the change that's happening around them, if the leaders think tech change is just infrastructure, it's just IT, it's somewhere in the digital department, that's not good enough because it's fundamentally changing how your consumers experience the world around them. If you take somebody like Jeff Bezos, he's famous within Amazon for always saying, Amazon is going to die. We just need to figure out how we push that out as far as possible. And that's how he creates a constant burning platform environment where everyone in the organization always thinks about where's growth going to come from, how do we protect ourselves, where are the threats coming from. And I see it in the CPG space, but a lot of industries, that urgency is often not there. And one of the big issues, obviously, is most big corporates, but even if you look at a lot of smaller companies, established companies, agencies, they're not really set up to deal with disruption like that, right? The majority of the organization is focused on optimizing rather than transforming, right? It's focused on reducing risk on a day-to-day basis rather than taking risk. They build very theoretical long-term business cases rather than run real-life experiments. So it's a big shift to reduce that complexity, to bridge silos. And the answer is not to have everyone in your organization or your team be an innovator. That would be madness. But you need to enable teams and small groups of people who can have a really focused approach to ready your organization for this stuff. And that's exactly why within Diageo we have set up Breakthrough. And within our Breakthrough function, we have a cross-functional team of creative technologists, of makers, of entrepreneurs who work away at these big problems. And some of the big themes or big principles we use first of all, we see our role as being a disrupt sensor. A lot of organizations by nature are very inside out. It's the classic ivory tower, right? For us, we need to be the team that looks at the VC world, looks at the tech world, and brings the challenges, brings the disruption into the organization, rattles the cage, asks some of the tough questions to make sure they're being addressed. The other principle that's really key to us is think big, start small. Right? We have to be choiceful. We have to understand what's the big opportunity vision, but start with very small, lean experiments to validate what we're doing, to constantly gather information, get smarter, and move on. We also need to be relentlessly consumer first. It's so easy in a world of tech buzz, tech hype, to get carried away and just want to try the new shiny toy. We need to always bring it back to what's the consumer problem we're fixing. What is the desire that we're actually meeting with what we're creating? We're also really big on collaboration, which takes, on the one thing, an attitude of being quite humble. So we're at Diageo, we're brilliant at creating great liquids, putting them in a beautiful bottle, telling a nice story about it. But we don't have any PhD in data science and neural networks in the organization. If we want to go after that, we need to partner with the best out there, and we need to do them on equal footing. We can't just treat them as suppliers. We need real collaborative relationships that we can learn together and get better at this stuff. And lastly, we think platforms, not projects, meaning there's often a pull into the business where we'd say, yes, why don't we do a campaign for Bailey's for this Christmas that will meet the business unit's goals, and we tick some boxes. The problem is, with the scale of opportunities we're looking at, we need to be very single-minded around the problem we're having and what the big opportunity is. And we can't get pulled too far into the organization. We need to fight that and have real strategic clarity. So we want big system solutions, not small tactical projects. And just bringing it back to that idea of think big, start small. And you often hear sort of the Silicon Valley ethos of we got to fail fast and all that. Now, in most organizations, failing still has a lot of stigma, right? So we do frame it as we want to learn fast. And no experiment we run should be a failure in the sense, if we don't learn what we set out to learn, then it's a failure. So we need to be really disciplined at isolating what is the thing we're validating and how do we do that. And also, we need to be really good at killing stuff. And that's also a word of caution to all of our build partners, agency partners. It's not in your business model to tell us when something went wrong, but we really need you to, because we want to build long collaborative relationships There's no point in test and learn if we don't talk about the failures, admit the failures, learn from that, and move on. And sort of, starting with every idea, the other thing we need to do is be incredibly focused around what we go after, because there's so much distraction out there. Now, there are lots of different frameworks. I put up the one from Strategizer, which a lot of people might be familiar with. But what it helps us do is really look with every project we start. What is the feasibility? Can we pull that off? What are the unknowns? Will the tech work? What is the regulatory environment? The desirability, a key one. Do consumers want this? What are we solving for? How do we validate that? And the viability, meaning can we make money off that? Is it sustainable? Can we run that on? Now, in not every project will we have all the answers, but it's a framework that helps us focus on what the big wins are. And now diving into a couple of projects that we've run within the Breakthrough team. So the first example is something that we built a few years back, actually, called What's Your Whiskey? And What's Your Whiskey started with the insight that a lot of consumers really struggle to navigate our category, especially whiskey, because it's a very traditional, very fragmented category. We use terminology like something is peaty or from the highlands, and people don't really know what that means. So our hypothesis was that we can use technology in an interesting way to make that more accessible, right? So we tried a lot of different technologies to understand how we can make that easier, until we partnered with a company called Vivanda, which was one of the leading sensory data companies in the world. And then our R&D team worked with that company to expand that. They were previously only in food, into our category, into spirits. What that allowed us to do is ask any consumer 11 questions about everyday flavors, like do you like rosemary, do you like cinnamon apple pie? And based on these results, we could create a personal flavor profile and match them with one of our 50-plus strong whiskey portfolio. Right, so we started this again, we collaborated, we started that early stage, tried it with one customer in GB, iterated the experience, and now we're live in over 20 countries in 9 languages. We integrated it into our Johnnie Walker distillery experience in Edinburgh. It's triggered from shelf, from menu, in e-commerce. So that's what we mean by platform thinking. And we actually ended up acquiring Vivanda as a partner and have a full platform of things we want to do with that technology to build that platform out. Another example is something that we call Bartend AR. And this, again, started with the insight that a lot of our consumers lack the confidence to create a cocktail when they're hosting at home because they are not sure if they're going to get it right? So they default to a glass of Prosecco or wine or beer, while we all know a cocktail is just more delicious and more impressive. The problem is existing solutions like a YouTube video or recipe didn't quite get them there because it wasn't personalized enough. So we, again, looked at different technologies. And augmented reality, if you look out there, some of the strongest use cases are all around education, right? They're first used for engineers and training. They're used for different educational use cases. So what we did, applied that to our category and trialed with a couple of beta testers on a small event, an experience where you use your own phone, it recognizes your glass, it teaches you when to pour in the spirit, when to add ice, when to add some garnish to create that drink. Based on these initial learnings, we took it to a bigger trial in Brazil, where we actually did it in a third space, so you still had somebody guiding the experience. Then we did another trial where in Great Britain, we put it on Amazon gift packs on a limited number to see how consumers engage with that call to action. And now we're live in Canada with 80,000 bottles that all have this functionality built in. So again, our platform thinking is, if we can keep proving and improving on that and add real consumer value, why shouldn't every bottle in our portfolio have a trigger that helps you to make greater cocktails and a cocktail guide in your own home? Another example, which is earlier stage in terms of generative AI, it's obviously an area with lots of different use cases. But when it comes to image creation and using tools like Stable Diffusion, we actually started first trialing this internally to understand the mechanisms behind it, standard technology. So we use it on brands like Smirnoff to help our design teams to create mood boards, to generate interesting creative illustrations, and do that at a speed as they never did before with a diversity of input that they never did before. So we use it as a tool that's just enabling our designers to do faster, better, more impactful work. But these learnings help us to understand what might that look like as a consumer-facing proposition. How do we manage all that juicy stuff around IP, around management of that, right? So it's the first stepping stone that helps us to build that platform thinking. And my last example, which is really a cautionary tale as well, because we do a lot of stuff that fails, and we kill it as well, but we don't tend to talk about it a lot. But when everyone last year was going crazy about the metaverse, and every PR agency, digital agency, and point of sales agency was pitching us the Johnnyverse, the Captain Morganverse, we ran an experiment where we just had a space we called Taste of the Future on Decentraland as part of Fashion Week. And we used that space to test different value propositions. How do consumers actually socialize, connect in a virtual space? Are they interested in buying products in that space? Are they interested in getting branded merchandise? Are they interested in just consuming content? And what we saw is just as an experience, it wasn't there for us yet. The scale wasn't there. The access was too clunky. If you're not an e-gamer, the fact that you can only access on a PC, you need a crypto wallet to do so. Our own exec wasn't even able to go into the experience. So we said, it's just not there yet. But we built this in 6 weeks on a tiny budget, and it helped us to really avoid some very bad, wrong investment. Now we're going to review this without a doubt, and we always go back to these experiments and do that. But it helps us to guide the organization to not bet on the wrong horses and have really evidence-based leadership. So in a quick summary, what you want to do, getting it right, for us it's all about that consumer value rather than brand narcissism. What are you fixing? What's the value in that? Be really clear on the objective. It's fine to run a test to just understand the technology or to learn if consumers like it, but isolate that, avoid the feature creep of adding lots of stuff in it. Don't think you'll build something, they will come, support it, set it up for success, right? Test and learn, we talked about that, so crucial. Be honest to yourself, be honest with your partners, work on that, let the real-life experience talk to you. When it comes to emerging tech, consumer research often very limiting because you don't really know how to frame it yet. And often you have brands launching something, going too big, and then throwing good money after bad, because in a corporate, it's very tough to admit failure. Right? And the last one, partner with the experts. Be humble about what you know, collaborate, go out there, don't treat your partners as suppliers, treat them as real partners on a long-term journey. Thank you very much. That's it.